start the camera, so you guys are ready to go whenever you're ready to go.
Is it starting? Yeah. So we're group 5. We're going to talk about testing. That's Lindsay, Joe, Greg, and Letitia. And I'm going to talk about reliability of testing in the workplace. And I'm probably going to go more into not the science behind it, but how it works out, each of the tests and what they do and all of that. Reliability, it refers to how dependently or consistently a test measures a characteristic of a person. If a person takes the test again, will he or she get a similar test score or a much different score? A test that yields similar scores for a person who repeats the test is said to measure characteristic reliability. So each test is different and it consists of a bunch of other things that it measures. What makes a good test? The test measures what it claims to measure consistently or reliability. This means that if a person were to take the test again, the person would get a similar test score. The test measures what it claims to measure. For example, a test of mental ability does in fact measure. The test is job relevant. In other words, the test measures one or more characteristics that are important to the job. By using the test, more effective employment decisions can be made about the individual, so it can sort out the certain person or candidates that are going for the job. Reasons that can alter an individual's test score: temporary, psychological, or physical state. So the test performance can be influenced by a person's psychological or physical state at the time of testing. Examples would be anxiety, fatigue, motivation, and environmental factors could be the lighting and even the administrator giving the test. The test form, many tests have more than one version or form. Items differ on each form, but each form is supposed to measure the same thing. Multiple raters can also, so each rater could be different and they could test each candidate from their scores differently. Reliability of the test, these factors are sources of chance or random measurement error in the assessment process. If there were no random errors or measurement, the individual would get the same test score, the individual's true score each time. In order to meet, alright, so these are the types of reliability tests. There's a test, pretest reliability, alternate form reliability, split half reliability, internal consistency, and inter-rater reliability. So the first one is test, pretest reliability. This is one of the most important types of reliability. It indicates the repeatability of test scores with the passage of time or the stability of the characteristic being measured. Certain examples would be IQ tests and surveys, which everybody probably has taken a lot. Alternate form reliability. Yeah. This method is convenient to avoid problems that come from the test-retest method. A high parallel form is virtually no different which version of the test a person takes, and then it differs with the low. We're going to go to split half reliability. It's when a single test is divided into two halves, the scores from each half would be compared. This is used to help measure the consistency of the test. This also shows that reliability tends to increase with the length of the test. Inter-rater reliability indicates how consistent test scores are likely to be if the test is scored by 2 or more raters. On some tests, raters evaluate responses to questions and determine the score. A high inter-rater reliability indicates that the judgment process is stable and the resulting scores are reliable. Internal consistency reliability indicates the extent to which items on a test measure the same thing. It is important to note that the length of a test can affect internal consistency reliability. Tests that measure multiple characteristics are usually divided into distinct components. Standard error measurement represents the margin of error that you should expect in an individual test score because of imperfect reliability of the test. It is important to review the explanations, the types, how they were studied, and the characteristics of the people taking the test. My new with testing, I applied to Old Navy and I had to take probably a 100-question assessment, and it asked me a bunch of different scenarios that would, I guess, look at how I was as a person in the certain environment that I guess a retail store would provide. And then I also had to take another one, but it was more of like scenarios, not more of like characteristics and the type of person I was. I also worked at Margot and Camille. It's high-end sunglasses and glasses optical in Philadelphia. And I also had to take another assessment for this. And it was basically the same as the one in Old Navy, but it was more about, more towards like the scenario side more than the characteristics. But it basically had to take the same thing, and it basically got me the job, like the one at Old Navy. Now, Letitia is going to come talk to you about valid.
Okay. Hey everybody. As Sarah said, I'm Letitia. I'm going to be talking to you guys about validity in testing. So basically, as Sarah said, there are a lot of components in regards to making a test. One, you need a test to be reliable. You also need to be valid. The whole point of a test being valid is to make sure that it is as accurate and as efficient as possible. And we're going to dive into that in a few seconds. My slide is ready. I don't know, how should I do one? Okay, anyway. So what is validity, right? So validity is a measure of whether the selection method appropriately, meaningfully, and usefully predicts candidates' behavior such as performance when they become a job holder. It's a kind of validity called criteria around related validity, and that criteria such as performance is used to measure the validity of a selection method. Then we have another test where it presents an important aspect of the job such as knowledge, geography, driving laws, or mechanics. Then you have another that constructs human characteristics, integrity, and as Sarah said, personality traits as well. So basically, it refers to how well a test measures what it's supposed to measure, also known as efficiency. There's no point in having a test if it's not effective or efficient, and nobody wants to waste their time. Okay, so it's necessary because while reliability is also needed, it alone is not sufficient. For a test to be reliable, it has to be valid. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like some kind of physics, but I don't know, but in physics, sometimes there's no point in you guys doing your research if it's not effective, it's not efficient. So think of it like this. If your scale, ladies, I know it's important, but if your scale is off by 5 pounds and it reads your weight every day, although it may be consistent, it's not necessarily accurate. Now, I know personally, if I'm on this scale, I'm going to give you my exact number, and that's not cool. If you're telling me I weigh 155, but really I weigh 150. That ain't cute. So, it's really necessary for a test to be valid. And types of validity, you have face validity, where it establishes that the measure appears to be assessing the intended construct under study. This is a little tricky to understand by definition, so I can explain it better with an example in a couple seconds. So, think of it like this. It's a measure. If a measure of art appreciation is created, all the items should be related to the different components and types of art. There's no point in you doing your job if you don't really care about it, if it's not as accurate. So for our art lovers, you know, when you're taking in something, it's really good to know that what you're doing, what you're assessing really matters. The second type of validity is the construct validity. It's used to ensure that the measure is actually measuring what is intended to measure. So it uses a panel of experts. Like, I don't know if you guys been to an interview where it's like, it's no longer one-on-one, it's really like you and at least 3 other people on the panel, and they're asking questions. So scenarios of this is where a women's study program may design a cumulative assessment of learning throughout the major. The questions are written with complicated wording and phrasing. This can cause a test to become a test of reading comprehension rather than a test of women's studies. So sometimes you have to be very clear as to what you're testing to make sure that your objective remains in view. Then you have your third type, which is criterion-related validity, and it's used to predict future or current performance, and it correlates test results with other criterion and interests. I believe the example for this is a physics program designed to measure and assess cumulative student learning throughout the major. The new measure could be correlated with a standardized measure of ability in this discipline, such as ETS field or GRE. Like, I know a lot of us, when we leave here, we're going to be looking at grad school, we'll be taking that GMAT and GREs, yes. The fourth type is formative validity, where when applied to outcomes assessment, is used to assess how well a measure is able to provide information to help improve the program under study. So in order for your test to be effective and make sure it works, you have to test it out before you can actually apply it to people. An example of this would be to design a rubric for history one could assess students' knowledge across this discipline. For example, you know how sometimes the generation before us are kind of like the test dummies for it to be as effective and efficient for us today? That's kind of what it's like. And the fifth and final would be sampling validity. It's similar to content, but it ensures that the measure covers the broad range of areas within the concept understudy. Including this, you can have panels, and it can be reflective. So an example of sampling validity is when designing an assessment of learning in the theater department, it will not be sufficient to only cover issues related to acting. You really have to get all aspects of what is included in what you're talking about. So in other words, sampling does work. And for my new and you, I was a sales rep at Vivint, and my boss, Charlie, y'all will love him, he's so crazy, but he was the type of person where he did not like to waste time. If what you were doing or what you were involved in, if it was not efficient or effective, in other words, reliable and valid, there was no point to it. And he always liked to make sure we were up to date and current on what it is that we need to know, because we gave a lot of performance presentations to our customers, and if we weren't valid in what we were doing, then there was really no point. And to ensure that we were, he would always give these constant long tests. It's really kind of pointless for me, but that's what a lot of companies do. And one more thing, I work with Karate Felipe. It's a child care program. I love little babies. But my boss, she used to always give us frequent monthly tests to make sure we're current on information. And what she used to give the test to previous workers to make sure that it would validate what we know. And in conclusion, the V word and reliability, okay, go hand in hand. One balances together and makes a test as efficient and effective as possible. And next we have Lindsay, who will be talking about types of pre-employment tests.
Hi guys, I'm Lindsay. I'll be speaking to you today about the types of pre-employment tests there are. That's what employers use prior to hiring people to assess their skills, their character, certain integrity traits, things such as this. Some of the test names, we have a cognitive ability test, integrity test, there's your classic interview, we have a job knowledge test, personality test, physical ability, and there's also work samples and simulations, which are more hands-on for people in the company. The first type of test that I'm going to discuss is the cognitive ability test. They use questions or problems to measure your ability to learn quickly, use logic, things that are fundamental to the job. You can have verbal, you can have nonverbal,